A few people have asked how I make my mushroom lamps, so in today's video I'm going to show you exactly how I create these magical little fungalicious beauties, step by step, so that you can make your own too. Our house is already full of mushrooms, so I'm making this one for our back patio, which means it needs to be weatherproof. And I'm using this lovely bit of cork, but first I need to find a new home for these orchids. Okay, let's talk lights. At first I couldn't decide which LEDs to use, solar or battery powered. But after testing them out I found that the battery ones were brighter, so I'm using them. But I have another little patio light project that I'm really excited about, so the solar ones won't go to waste. I'll be posting that video next week. The pack I'm using is specifically for outside use with a waterproof casing and a handy dandy control. But if you're making your lights for indoors, then these battery powered lights will do. Or better still, USB powered, so you don't need to worry about constantly changing batteries. I prefer the silver wire as opposed to the copper wire because it's less visible in the finished piece. I'll leave a list of materials in the description box with some affiliate links. When it comes to mounting your mushrooms, the options are endless. In the past, I've always used wood, but you can mount them to pretty much anything. As long as hot glue will stick to it, you're good to go. Talking of hot glue, let's get started. First I'm attaching the battery pack in a place that's easy to reach but won't be visible. And now I just need to decide where I want the mushrooms to go. Starting closest to the battery pack first, I make a little hole where I want the first patch of mushrooms to be. The cork I'm using is soft so it can be hand drilled. Then starting with the first LED, I just poke and pull some of the lights through. And still using that first LED, I make sure that the light is pointing upwards, then I twist the wire back on itself until the twist goes back down to the base. That's my first mushroom done. Here's a close-up of the second. Now I want to create a gap between those two and the next three, so I'm using black tape to black out the LED that's bridging the gap between the two clusters. Normally I'd just drill another hole and come in from the back for the second cluster, but I want to show you that you don't necessarily have to do that. Once they're done, I hold them in position and glue them down. Later I'll cover up the glue with some moss and acrylic paint. I definitely recommend not clustering too many mushrooms in one hole, because later when we come to make the stems, if it's too crowded, it gets a bit tricky. I'm gluing down the wire at the back as I go, especially the LEDs with the black tape. Now that I've got a few clusters of little mushrooms, I want to add a different variety. I haven't tried these ones before, but I'd like to add some of these conchs. So for now I'm just going to pull through a load of LEDs and temporarily take them down for later. Now let's make some penny buns, like these beauties. First I need to add some sturdy wire to support these mushrooms. That's going to be the base and support of my mushroom stem. And I'm leaving some excess wire to support the tops. I'm twisting up some little LED cluster bouquets to fill up the big mushroom tops. A bit of hot glue. Cut off the excess wire, and that's it, ready for the next stage. And for that we're going to need some white silicone, something to mix on, a palette knife, some latex gloves, some dish soap, some chalk pastels, some acrylic, old brushes, some water and an old bowl. First I mix a load of dish soap with some water and get my pastels ready. I'm doing this outside today because I don't have a mask and this stuff smells super toxic. I'm mixing in some pigment so that the stems won't just be a stark white colour. And before I can touch it, I need to make sure that my glove is completely covered in the liquid solution. Then I just gently squeeze and mould it into shape, making sure not to cover the LED on the top. Always working in small batches because once the silicone comes into contact with the air it starts to set. A little more pigment at the base. I work my way around the cork, doing one mushroom in a cluster at a time, pushing the other wires out of the way and then returning back to that cluster later once the first ones have set, which takes about half an hour. You can also use acrylic paint to add colour to your silicone. This makes the silicone set a little quicker, but I think it also makes it less sticky and a little easier to work with. So if you find it a little too sticky, try using acrylic and working in small batches. If you find any spots that need patching up, you can add more silicone later. Now for the big ones. These penny buns have quite bulbous stems, so first I apply some foil to bulk out the middle and keep them light. Then I just add the silicone with a spatula. And now it looks like I've got two white slugs. Next we're going to be making the mushroom tops to bring this all together. And for that I'm going to be using polymer clay, specifically translucent white. I'm also going to be using these ball sculpting tools, some brushes and some pan pastels. These are my favourite because they have a lovely strong pigment. Some sculpting tools, some cornstarch or any kind of flour, a rolling pin or a pasta roller, and a craft knife or a blade of some sort. I start by conditioning the clay, which basically means rolling it around for a bit with my hands until it softens up. Then I break off a grape-sized amount and roll it flat to about 2 to 3 millimeters thick, or number 5 on the pasta machine. And I use some cornstarch to stop the clay from sticking to the ball. For these ones I'm going to pinch a little nipple shape on top. Using the craft blade I cut off the excess, starting with a curve up and then turning the sculpting tool, not the knife, until I meet the start. The curve at the start makes it easier to line up the start with the finish. Then I add some details before applying the pastels. You don't have to do this step, it can be quite fiddly and time consuming, but I do prefer the way it looks. Okay, now for some colour. I'm going to be doing lots of different coloured mushrooms for this project, but for this first batch I'm going with my regular psilocybin shade of brown. I like the way the dark brown gets into those grooves and makes them stand out more. If you find that your mushrooms split when you remove them, it could be that the clay needs more conditioning, or that the tools are too cold. I know that one winter I had to keep my tools sitting on a hot water bottle because the mushrooms kept splitting, which can be pretty annoying at this stage. I'm thinking this could potentially be one of my last mushroom lamps I ever make, so I've decided to use up some old mushroom tops I had left over from previous lamps. But it's always good to have some spares, so here's some quick shots of that before they go in the oven. And now for the big mushrooms. I'm using foil to make a base for the tops, checking the size as I go. This time I'm rolling the clay a little thicker. Number 2 on the pasta machine, or around 3 to 4 millimeters. A pinch of cornstarch. I really should have taken my rings off for this, never mind. And of course, these penny buns are so delicious that the slugs usually get to them first. Last but not least, the conchs. This is the first time I've made these, so I'm just hoping that I'll be able to remove the foil after they've been baked. Now let's bake these bad boys and get it all put together. Okay, so my oven's not great and I ended up baking these a little too high, but it's fine, they're still usable. I just needed to add some white paint to the slug holes, and thankfully I was able to remove the foil without any damage. And to finish off these yellow ones, I just needed to mix some liquid fusing gel with some white clay to add these white spots before giving them another quick bake, on a lower temperature this time. Because these are going to be outside, I'm giving them all a coat of UV resin to protect them from the elements. Usually for inside lamps I would just use Fimo gloss or matte varnish. Yummy, they look like delicious lollipops. Okay, let's get this done. The silicone's all set now and I can bend them into position ready for their tops. And to attach them I'm using a clear silicone. Okay, I'm going to shut up now and cue the dramatic music. I'm adding some white silicone to the underside of these larger mushrooms. And that's it, ready to hang. Well chuffed. I hope this gave you some inspiration to make your own magical mushrooms. And if you have any questions, just comment below. Don't forget, I've left a list of materials in the description box with some affiliate links, so if you buy anything using those links, it doesn't cost you any extra, but I get a few pennies from each sale, which really helps me out a lot. If you've enjoyed this video, I'd love it if you gave it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more, you know what to do. Also, come back next week to see what I make with those leftover LEDs. Thanks so much for watching, see you next time, bye!